Total lovable guy. What's up, man? I'm loving the gifs that the people are making. That one guy's making in the Discord.
Yeah, I was showing you those before. Those are actually from Pete, who's in the audience there. So shout out to Pete for making those sweet gifs for our community over there. And thank you guys for having me, longtime MVHQ member, and it's no doubt my favorite community place to spend time. And so super grateful that we were able to collaborate on this for you. We Ben and I have been working on this project for since August already. And so it's pretty cool to kind of see it all come to fruition now, be able to offer you guys some whitelist spots because, I spend all my time in Metaverse HQ voice chat, even though I'm much more of a lurker than a talker, but it's my favorite place to be. And honestly, changed my life in the past year. So kudos to all you guys. And really excited to have the opportunity to work with you here.
About you, I'm blushing, brother. Much love to you and the DJ network, and really excited that we were able to, you've been sort of keeping me on the radar with Ben's, with the work you've been doing with Ben, and obviously, I don't think there's a single person on this planet that hasn't, actually like been touched by your work, Ben, whether it was through the social network, the based on the book that you published, as well as 21. I'm even a fan of Billions. I was like really excited to hear that you write for that show. So I would love to just break it down. Maybe we could start with your NFT collection. What is it? What are the details we need to know? And then we could just sort of dive right in from there.
Sure, and thank you so much. It's very kind words you said. I've been watching the NFT world for a number of months now, and more convinced that this is the future of so many things. And in my writing, I always look for revolutionary stories, and I like to tell origin stories. And looking at NFTs, I feel like this is the infancy of something that is going to just explode over the next couple of years. But my project is launching this week. It's the first mint is going to be 6,000 images that are derived from the work I've done on sort of my newest book, which was called The Antisocial Network, about the whole meme stock revolution. And there's going to be a second mint, which will be free to wallets who own the first mint drop. And then there will be a third one that'll be Vegas based. And the second one is Bitcoin and billionaires based. And if you own all three, you get a screenplay token and share in a screenplay that I'm going to write about the NFT universe, the NFT world. And so it's kind of this shared sort of community that I'm hoping to build, where people will, be involved in a project that I'm writing that'll hopefully turn into a big mainstream movie. And it'll also be a gathering place for people with sort of a shared interest in the sort of stories that I write about. And the NFT is kind of this bridge between what I do in my writing and the people who kind of like that stuff and the people who are into NFTs. So we'll see. But I'm really excited about the drop. Is in a couple days. And as I said, it's going to be 6,000 images that are about the meme stock revolution that went on. I think we've got some really cool art, so I'm really psyched about it. And, over time, I'm going to be writing this screenplay. And so the NFTs are going to give you access to that and a lot more. There's going to be live events. There's going to be a Vegas party once COVID is sort of gone. There's going to be one-on-one writing with me, if that's something you're interested in, writing lessons, and online poker games, and then the Discord where I'm telling stories. There's a story channel there which I'm adding to every day, which will turn into sort of a whole book eventually. And so that's the project in a nutshell. I don't know, Buncho might know more. He's my guru who's taught me everything I know about NFTs over the last 6 months. So if there's any more that I'm missing there.
Yeah, so just for you guys here who are, MVHQ and that we got on the whitelist today, the mint, the pre-sale is going to be tomorrow at starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm not sure if Ben mentioned the price, but it's 0.06 ETH to mint, and your max per transaction on the whitelist is going to be 2 per transaction. Whatever's left will go to public sale on Tuesday. Right now we're trending as there probably won't be too much supply left by the public sale, hopefully, but whatever is left will be a public sale, max 5 per transaction, same price, 0.06. And so that's kind of the details there. From a MVHQ standpoint, what's really most important to you is, what is kind of the catch of this project? Why is it different than everything else we're seeing minted every day? And I think it is really this screenplay token piece that we're doing, being able to take this set of 3 NFTs and unlock this screenplay token that's going to give these token holders a pro rata share in the monetization of this screenplay that Ben writes. And if you followed Ben's work, you know that he has a pretty fantastic track record at getting his books and screenplays made into movies. We mentioned, The Social Network, 21, Bitcoin Billionaires is being made into a movie. The Anti-Social Network, his newest work, also being worked on right now as a adaptation. So, when we talk about what this screenplay might turn into, it is, there's a very good likelihood that we will be able to get this, screenplay and movie made. And, what does that timeline look like? After the third drop, which should be in about 60 days or so, Ben's going to start writing that screenplay, and he's promised to, deliver that within 6 months. And then the other piece for, MVHQ members who mint this, as Ben mentioned, you'll be getting that first. You'll buy the first token, and that allows you free access to that second piece of the set, right? And so that second piece of the set is going to be airdropped at a 1 per wallet ratio, meaning that second piece is going to act almost as a little bottleneck and a cap to the total supply of these screenplay tokens. So the reason we did that is to aim to try not to dilute that value for the token holders. There's 6,000 total tokens, but we intend there to be far less total sets of those tokens available to create that screenplay token. So, from what you're looking for as a minter and some added value off the bat, as far as where, value may come from this project for you guys, that's where I see the big opportunity there. But that's pretty much the details for the actual drop and the mechanics of the project and what that's going to lead into. And, as Ben mentioned, I mean, Ben's got awesome stories for days that he can tell about the movies and all this stuff that he's done. I'll let you guys get into that, but that's kind of all the details you need for the drop and everything there.
I love it. Thank you for breaking that down. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at a 6,000 total supply of the Genesis NFTs at 0.06 per mint. Pre-sale does start tomorrow, and then the following day after public sale for whatever's left. Ben, would love to hear your sort of your transition into the metaverse, right? So you said for the last couple of months you've been keeping an eye out on NFTs and started to look more into them. And it's obvious like you had a lot of exposure into the whole GameStop situation, which I think a lot of us here have also had. Perhaps like share with us like how did you transition into the space and how did you find our troublemaking friend Bunchu over here?
Sure. So my transition into this world actually starts way back. A lot of you might have seen the movie 21, which was my book bringing down the house about Vegas and the card counters who took on casinos. And that book led to the next story, which became The Social Network. And in the process of doing The Social Network, I got to know the Winklevoss twins. And that's kind of where my journey into the metaverse began. Because when I wrote the book that became The Social Network, I saw them as the bad guys. They're the giant blonde guys chasing the Karate Kid around the gym. And so they were the bad guys from every 80s movie. And I never thought I would hear from them again. And it was years later when I saw them in the newspaper that they'd become Bitcoin billionaires that I reconnected with the Winklevi and started hanging out with them. Surprisingly, they weren't that angry with me, even though I'd turned them into evil jocks in the movie. And from them, I learned about crypto. That was my introduction into the world of crypto. I had known nothing about it until I started hanging out with them and trying to figure out how they'd become these multi-billionaires in Bitcoin, because they were the guys in the suits and ties. They weren't supposed to be the guys you saw in the crypto world, and so that intrigued me. And they had basically introduced me to what NFTs were as I stayed close to them as we wrote Bitcoin Billionaires and as we're developing the movie for that. And so in talking to them about NFTs, I started to think, well, this is something really interesting, because I'm really into this bridge between the physical world, the real world that we've all been living in, and the digital world. And I have two little kids who are obsessed with video games. My son plays Fortnite all day long, and he would rather get for his birthday, clothing for his Fortnite character than real clothing. And to me, this is a sign that for kids, for younger people, this is real to them and as real as anything else. And here's this unique way to actually own something digital that's never really happened before. So that kind of blew my mind. And Bunchu and Adam Brotman, who is really sharp guy in this industry, basically started talking to me about the possibilities that are out there. And I've seen what Gary Vee's done. I've seen, obviously what's happened with the Bored Apes thing and all of these different giant moments in NFTs. And I was at first just thinking of it as a book and a movie, because I was like, there's going to be a really great movie and book about this that's going to put it into the mainstream in a big way. But then we started to, learn about it. I started to learn about it from these guys, and the idea came about that, well, there's more to this than that. It's not just a story that I want to tell, but this is a way to connect with a really vibrant, lively community, in a way that I've never been able to do before. Twitter's like a megaphone, right? I can talk to 50,000 people on Twitter, but I don't know why they're there, and I don't know if they care about what I'm doing. And Kickstarter's somewhere where a bunch of people could put money into a project, but basically have nothing to do with it. But NFTs give you something else, where you kind of own something amazing that also may lead to something else. So that's where it all came to. But really, it's a ride that I've been on since writing about card counters, because that project, introduced me to a lot of gamblers, but it also kind of led to the social network, because I became known as the college, I wrote books that college kids read. And that's why the social network happened, because Eduardo had reached out to me, and that led to the Winklevi, and that led to this. So it's a kind of a weird journey and to the NFT world, and the Winklevi, I guess, are at the center of it.
Yeah, I think Mark Zuckerberg might be following you, brother.
Zuckerberg doesn't love me. I'll tell you that. When I wrote the book, so Eduardo was the one who would come to me, and that all started. It was a weird email at 2 a.m, and it said, "My best friend founded Facebook, and no one's ever heard of him." And so I was like intrigued. This was back when Facebook only had a few 100 million members. It wasn't huge, but it was growing. And so I went out to a bar and met with, in walked Eduardo Saverin. He sat down and he had a couple beers, and he said, "Mark Zuckerberg fucked me," which I think since then we know a lot of people could probably say that. But Eduardo started the conversation that way, and I was like, "Well, tell me more." And he proceeded to tell me that crazy story, and so I was, got to know Eduardo very well. I met the Winklevi twins on Facebook. I searched them out because I needed more sources, and they were in the midst of this lawsuit. And then I found Sean Parker. Sean was a fan of mine because of Bringing Down the House. So he was willing to talk to me, but Mark wouldn't talk to me. I reached out to Mark, and he kept saying no. Eventually he let me send him questions, and then he refused to answer them. And when he found that I was talking to the Winklevi, he absolutely refused to talk to me. And then, when the project came out, he got very upset. So for a while, I think they had a dartboard at Facebook with my face on it. But when the movie came out, it was such a touchstone, like a cultural moment, that Facebook had to embrace it. And then that's when Mark went on Saturday Night Live, and that's when, he was on Time Magazine and all that kind of stuff. And so right now he understands what I do, but I don't think he's my biggest fan.
Yeah. I think that Mark and his, I guess, move into meta is sort of that indicator that perhaps, he is a fan of your work. So much so that he needs to always follow it and see what's happening, because he's going to miss the train. I think what you're working on now is really interesting because like you said, it's been a culmination of writing, both of those books that went on to become The Social Network and then 21, where you have sort of this like this movement into the metaverse, it's become more and more apparent. And it's cool now that, maybe like you didn't write, I mean, you did write that book on crypto, but more so the Winklevoss twins. But now, it's a layer deeper with NFTs. You're saying like your family's engaging with them. This book, have you started writing it? Is there some alpha you can share with us? What are like some impactful like moments in NFTs in your last couple of months that have really made an impact on your writing so far?
So, right now it's in the stage where I'm trying to learn everything there is to. And part of what having this Discord has been is looking at all the stories, and people are sort of guiding me along the way. And I'm going to look to this community that's involved in my NFTs, as my sources in a lot of ways. And so what's really cool is I'm trying now to figure out what are the big moments, what are the big projects to make a mainstream movie successful. It's got to hang around some personal drama. It can be a small story, actually, of one person or one NFT project that tells the wider story of what's happening in this cultural moment. And so that's what I'm searching for. What is that one story that really captures all of the elements and the good and the bad? Part of what makes a story successful is you don't sanitize it. And I think that's why, for instance, Bitcoin Billionaires is going to be a really cool movie, because we don't start with Bitcoin after Silk Road. We start with Bitcoin before Silk Road. So you don't sanitize where it came from to tell the story. And I think with NFTs, the Wild West feel of what's going on right now is a big part of the story. I think the idea that there are kind of NFT gunslingers, that there are, incredible actors, there are bad actors, there's the excitement generates fast. The fact that just like the GameStop thing, it's grown from home. It's grassroots. We started our Discord, and I know this is small compared to a lot of these, but we were a few hundred people bouncing around, and now there's 9,000, right? And it happens so fast. That's what I want to try and capture. So the answer is I don't have the specific story yet, but I do think you need to hit all of those big moments. You got to go with people. You have to talk about, Bored Ape. You have to talk about Ethereum and what it is and what the other ones are. And you have to go through all of that. But the story has to hinge on one small personal, thing. And that I haven't found yet. And that's what I'm going to learn over the next couple months.
Maybe that MVHQ side story.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Listen, I think that there's going to be the goal is that everyone in this industry kind of sees themselves in it in some way. And so you do want to get all of that. And maybe you do something like The Big Short, where you really have things explained in ways like that, or a little more like The Social Network, where it's a little bit more intense. But that stuff, it sort of evolves as you figure out what the beats of the story are.
I love that you brought up The Big Short. I think Adam McKay, the way that he conveys his storytelling through his when he directs, is incredible. I think Don't Look Up is one of the greatest movies of all time already.
Oh my God, I think I was muted. Yeah. Somebody muted us, I think. I'm back. I think Don't Look Up is absolute genius. Yeah. And Adam McKay is one of those people that I've been talking to for the Antisocial Network. Actually, I'm not supposed to say that. Sorry. Anyways, he's one of the people we're talking to in terms of directing that project, because you're right. He can take a complicated subject and boil it down. And that's one of the things I think Bunchu and I have been talking about, is that the NFTs will become mainstream and huge when it's simple enough that my dad could understand it, right? If my 80-year-old dad could get what's going on here, that's going to be a big moment. And I think that's where the Adam McKays of the world come into this,
Yeah, I love that you said that. My dad just called me a couple hours ago asking me how to set up a MetaMask. I'm like, dear Dad. Here we go. So I want to break it down for the audience, because I think not a lot, there's so many new people that come into the NFT space, and maybe like today's like what we mint like 40 to 100 of, it might be someone's first mint ever. And I think that context is something that not a lot of us have, just because there's so much people flooding into this space, and there's not enough like ways to share this information and make it more public. Like, a lot of people don't realize that Gutter Cat Gang fumbled their drop. They released 30 minutes earlier before they should have on the website. I think a lot of people missed out on the fact that Cool Cats was 0.08 to mint, and it didn't mint out. They had to drop that cost of 0.02, and projects like Stoner Cats, project like Glue Factory. I think these are two in particular that really make this like interesting to me, because I think there's obviously a huge white space when it comes to NFTs on the entertainment side. I don't think anyone's really been able to nail it. I think those two projects that I just mentioned, Stoner Cats and Glue Factory, I'm sure you've looked into them already. If not, highly recommend. Their premise was, give us ETH, we'll give you NFTs, and the ETH you give us will power the production of our show. We'll produce it independently. And they just haven't been able to provide value in the ways that we all thought they could. And they made off with millions and millions of dollars of exit liquidity. Mind you, Stoner Cats was spearheaded by Vitalik Buterin, founder of Ethereum.
Right.
And the stars of That 70s Show, which I didn't think would rug me when I was first watching the show as a kid. But lo and behold, that's where we are. So how does your framework, your format, differ from this sense, like this whole like crowdfunding to create a movie, crowdfunding to create something, and how do you think that other authors, other writers can benefit with this format, and can everyone do it?
Yeah, great question. And I think the way I look at it is, if you want to have a story written, you need to have a writer. and I think that from my perspective, I'm going to write the screenplay and the community is going to own a part of it. And there's nothing that really can stand between that happening, right? What happens to the screenplay, whether it becomes this huge Hollywood movie or whether it becomes a small independent film, whether we go for self-financing or whether we go for, go to a big studio and sell it as I have for my previous projects, that's all to be determined down the road. But the screenplay and the story will be written by me. And that's, I think, different than people trying to raise money to put together something. It's more like an artist providing what it is that they do to the community that likes it. So what I do is write, and so I came to this thinking that there's going to be a bunch of people out there who like the way I write and want to share in it, and I'm going to want to have these interactions with the people who like my work. And so that's what we're building in my community. So I don't see how we could not succeed in that. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's the way I approached it from the beginning. It's not about raising funding to do something. It's about me writing a movie about this space and the space being a part of it. So I think that's unique, and I think it's different, and I think it's going to be a model for creatives who want to create but want to do it around the silos that are there. Normally the way I would write a project like this is I would sit in my room and I'd write, and then I would go sell my spec script to a studio, and there would be no sort of community involvement, and the movie would get made that way. What this adds is the fact that the community is part of the project from the beginning. And it's also the community that's going to end up watching it, and it's going to be the community that's going to end up reading it. So I think that hopefully, if this works and it looks good to the people who are in it and they get some value out of it, they're gonna want to see other authors doing this, and other authors are going to want to do this, and you're going to see other sort of how Hollywood deals with NFTs. And I know they're going to move into it in a big way, because I've had so many conversations just in the last few weeks with major Hollywood players saying, okay, what's going on in this NFT space and what do we do? They're going to want to see projects evolve that are community based, that the community loves, and I think there's going to be just different proofs of concept going on, and hopefully this will be one of them. So yeah, I think that you're going to see projects sputter that attempt to fund something this way, but I think that projects where they're attempting to build the art this way are going to evolve, and are going to show you the art at the end.
Got it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Bunchu, what do you think? You've had these conversations with me about, what we're trying to do here that I think is unique. You think that's sort of where?
Yeah, I think that was really well differentiated, right? Because when you think of, what Mitch brought up Stoner Cats, and Stoner Cats, that was a crowd fund, right? And I don't really think that's definitely not what we're doing here, right? Where Stoner Cats was something that was crowdfunded. First of all, I mean, they were, not to be rude to Stoner Cats, but they were picking our pockets from the mint price, right? Like, just it was a pretty astronomical mint price for what they were promising, and I think Ben hit it on the head. It's the difference between funding a project or having this be the vehicle for the end game arc. And I think what I like about this project is right from the get-go, you can see where we're going with this and what the end result will be and exactly how you get there, right? And what we've tried to do with the way we've set up the tokens and the pricing and the supply is to really give something here where the token holders will see value created by us based on just the care we've taken to put into all of those inroads to get us to the end.
Got it. I gotta say too, speaking with you, Ben, I know a bunch who's trouble. I love speaking with him, but I mean, you've got a lot of alpha to give, right? You're in a space where you sort of are sitting on the outskirts, and yes, you are now a part of the NFT space. I'm not going to disqualify that, but you sort of have like this overarching perspective where you're talking to like different, big Hollywood companies, and you have insight and contextual like networks with like Winklevoss twins, and Mark Zuckerberg hates you, but at least you're on his radar.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I started this project, a couple of the people I reached out to just to talk to were like Mark Cuban, the Winklevoss twins. I mean, the list is people who are pro con, who love what's going on here, who don't know what's going on here, people inside the industry, people outside, and people on the creative side. Because I know everyone's kind of intrigued, but nobody really understands it. And what I do is attempt to tell stories to help everyone. If I can understand something, then everyone can understand it, because I'm truly not technically minded, and Bunchu could tell you that. I don't necessarily understand every aspect of how this works yet, but my goal is in telling the story of the space, it becomes a mainstream massive thing because people can understand it the way I understand it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that over the course of this process, and I don't see this as, we drop an NFT and that's it. My goal is that this becomes sort of a big part of my life over, as we develop projects and as we sort of build this community. I think what people don't realize about the book industry is how a very small number of people can really affect the world. Because, with movies, a movie comes out and you need 10 million people to see it opening day for it to be successful. A book comes out. If 10,000 people like that book and are talking about that book becomes a huge thing. It becomes a cultural thing. Everyone's talking about it. It becomes mainstream. It gets into newspaper articles. It gets on TV. 10,000 people moves mountains in the book industry. So when I look at this is a community that's very powerful and doesn't necessarily realize its power. And that's what I learned from the GameStop drama. We saw a group of people on Reddit really take on Wall Street. And maybe they didn't win necessarily because Robinhood came into the middle and fucked everything up, but they really, really pushed those walls over for a very short period of time. They pushed the walls over. And I feel like that a group of really passionate people in this industry can have a major effect on what people think. And that's where I come in. I mean, I can write a movie or write a book that if there's a group of people behind it that are really interested, can end up in the New York Times the next day. And so, I think there's a lot to happen here. And I see this sort of platform becoming much bigger and bigger and bigger. I think there's a roadmap here that we're just in the infancy of, where a small group of really vibrant, like-minded people are going to move mountains. And so that's what I want to try and do with this. I'm not trying to be too philosophical here. Maybe it's, the end of the weekend and the beginning of the week, but I really do, I came into this from that perspective, from where do we take this if we really dive in and use this community to push things in a positive way. And that's what I want to do with this. So we'll see. We'll see over the next week how excited people get about it. We'll see how much it grows. And that's also why we want to do this organically. I think what's really cool about the approach that Bunchu and his team have sort of put forward here is that we let it grow. We were not the tail wagging the dog. We were the tail following the dog. And a few hundred people became a few thousand people, becoming 10,000 people. That's what you die for in Hollywood, right? That's what you die for as a creative. It's way better than someone just advertising something and getting people behind you. So the organic growth is what shows me that there's this real urgency. There's this real urge to make something like this work. And so anyways, we'll see what happens, but I'm excited about where we could go with this.
I think it's really interesting that you brought up the Wall Street Bets, which was that Reddit subreddit and also a massive Discord. That really sort of was the first to spearhead, or at least maybe not the first, but was like that community that just kept amplifying in volume. And I think it just makes sense that you are now in the NFT space writing about us, or sort of like being a purveyor of what's happening here, because if you look at your initial like project or your first two books with Zuckerberg, the Winklevoss twins, and then 21, like there's an ethos here that's consistent, and it's sort of like the ethos of opportunity, the ethos of people really just digging down and taking it upon themselves to to find opportunity. And I think with the NFT space in particular, sure, there's going to be, like, at least this is my personal take, Poop, Jacob, Jake, Bunchu, feel free to chime in here. I came into the space for opportunity. I looked at this sort of as a market that was not as, I guess, sure, it's discombobulating and less, like, definitely not as regulated as like the stock market, but it just was so much more interesting to me to buy and sell a JPEG than it was to buy and sell a stock of, I don't know, like Apple, right? Like my dad does that shit. For me, this is something that I understand because, like you said, we're predisposed to this. I was a gamer growing up my whole life, and I understand like tokenomics with regards to gaming because I've played video games my whole life, and I always had that in-game currency, and I understood how to make more of it within the game, within the rules, the contract.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that it's the Wild West, but it's full of opportunity. It's like what the GameStop thing did, I think, is broke open the doors and showed the world that there's this possibility in a movement of people, but also that individuals don't have to go out there and buy a stock because the fundamentals say they should. They can buy a stock for other reasons. It becomes a token if enough people believe in it, and if it's got some interesting stuff that other people haven't seen. GameStop was a company that probably shouldn't exist anymore. That's how Wall Street thought of it. It's brick and mortar, and it sells consoles. But what people who liked GameStop saw was this massive internet community that likes to play video games, that doesn't want to see GameStop fail. And they saw the value that wasn't there, right? The deep fucking value, as DFP would say. And I think what you're seeing in NFTs is exactly that, is that you're seeing the value that maybe, your uncle who works on Wall Street would not be able to see. And maybe you discern some of these don't have value and some of them do, and he would just see a bunch of pictures. And so I think it gives you an edge, having played games, all your life. It gives people an edge if they're getting into this early. And that's what I like to see. That's what I saw with Bitcoin when I wrote about Bitcoin, was that there was a group of truly smart people who were seeing something that Silicon Valley had completely missed, and that Wall Street had completely missed, and that regular people in the mainstream never really went behind that door, but this one group of people was there doing it. And that's what's happening in NFTs right now.
Hey, you mind if I jump in real quick, Mitch?
Oh, you got it, brother.
Yeah, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a fantastic conversation. One question I did have was kind of like we've alluded to a little bit, or Mitch has alluded to, in terms of some of these, stoner cats and other types of projects that have tried to take this approach in their own way. we've seen the PFP boom. We've obviously seen some of the gaming boom, and know that that's what's to come. It feels like something that's kind of lagged behind a little bit is the entertainment NFT and the utility that can provide to, especially to the normies that are looking to get in, and that connection that they have with the celebrities and entertainers that they resonate with. Have there been any struggles on your end, kind of connecting with your quote unquote normie fan base to get them to see the side of blockchain technology and crossing that bridge over to being a part of the NFT community?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, there's a couple things going on. One is on the Hollywood side, every sort of creative in Hollywood is trying to figure out how they get into the NFT space. But you get up to the executives at the studios and they're terrified. They're all terrified of new things always, because in Hollywood, the way it works is if you say yes to something and it doesn't go well, you lose your job. But if you say no to something, even if you missed an opportunity, you keep your job. So they're inclined always to say no to new technologies. So I know a lot of people on the creative side who are attempting to move the studios into some really big, possibilities here. And the studios are quietly sitting there saying no and waiting for proof of concepts, for something to happen. But you're seeing big companies starting to move into this, right? Because they're willing to take a little more risk to stay ahead of the other companies. So I think you're going to see a shift in Hollywood very soon, where some big people, are going to move. And I'm advising or talking to some of these groups. It's funny that I've become an expert, even though compared to you guys, I'm way not an expert. But because I wrote Bitcoin Billionaires, they assume I know what I'm talking about. I will say that my mainstream fans, and or regular people who might have seen the social network but don't know anything about technology, for them to on-ramp onto this, it's got to be simple. It's got to be quick. It's got to not feel like a scheme, right? And they've got to get it right off the bat. And so I will say, like talking to like my dad and people like that, when I attempted to explain NFTs to him, he didn't get it. He didn't get GameStop either. He's like, the world is going to crap, right? But then when I said, I'm going to drop 3 NFTs and the NFT holders are going to own a piece of my movie, of a screenplay I'm going to write. Well, he got that, right? That he understands. He's like, oh, okay, so that's why. And maybe that's not why necessarily, people buy an NFT for the end result, right? But I think that there's an on-ramp for people if they can understand what it is they're getting. So it's interesting to me, and I've had these arguments on Twitter all the time where people are like, well, what if people copy an NFT? But I'm like, the Mona Lisa sits there in their museum. But, every college kid has a copy of art on their wall, right? We all saw Van Goghs, and, maybe I'm old, but everyone had a Van Gogh in their dorm room. That didn't devalue Van Gogh. It enhanced the value of Van Gogh. And I think that it's hard for people to realize that what's happening in the digital world that's incredible now is that you can own something, verifiable and unique. So that makes it very similar to owning any sort of art in the real world. And once we move onto the metaverse and we're all living in online houses and we're all going to develop our own characters and our own personalities online, you're going to want to own things. You're going to want to own digital art. You're going to want to own a piece of a movie via a digital avenue. Everything's going to work that way. You're going to own shoes in your digital world. And, you're going to pick up a Pepsi can and you're going to scan it with your phone and you're going to get something for your digital house that you're going to own. That's the future we're going towards. And maybe we're there a little early, right, with the NFT community. But I see that. And I think that my mainstream fans are going to come along with me in that direction. Listen, when I wrote Bitcoin Billionaires, the majority of my audience had never heard of Bitcoin. And they were floored by what they were reading. And the Winklevoss twins were the easy way for them to get into that story. Because, you know who those guys are, right? And that's what we have to do with NFTs is you've got to give people an easy on-ramp, not just the technology side where you hit a button and you buy NFTs, but also in the story. There has to be an easy on-ramp in the story. You've got to see something that you get right away. A movie, you have to have those Adam McKay scenes, where a beautiful actress turns to the camera and says, okay, this is what's actually happening here. And that's where I'm hoping we go with this.
I am so excited. You've mentioned Adam McKay at least 3 times now, so I think you might be leaking.
I'm hoping he's listening and he calls me up because I think he's awesome. I've had some meetings with his people about the Antisocial Network, and I think we have a real possibility there. And then this would be a project that I would absolutely show him. There's other directors, who are fantastic, and it just depends on what you want. If Fincher does it, then it becomes dark and scary. But you never know what you're gonna get. Robert Luketic did my movie 21, and he get done Legally Blonde. So if you get Robert Luketic, the thing just looks fantastic, and everyone's carrying Prada purses and bags. And so the directors sort of do affect what a movie looks like in a big way. But you want someone who can understand, difficult things and then make it simple for people.
That's incredible. And I really appreciate the insight into the industry as well, because that's something I think that's very foreign to a lot of us. It makes sense when you explain it like that, where it's easier to say no, and they're kind of preserving their long-term job security. But it definitely hurts the industry as a whole, and I think it gives opportunity to a lot of smaller creatives who can kind of have nothing to lose and can take this by storm.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you see sequel after sequel, but not original stuff, right? Because it's easy to say yes to a sequel because you already have a track record with it. It's very hard to say yes to anything else because you're going to get fired if it bombs. I will say the streamers have changed that a little bit, in that the streamers can take more risks because they can just throw stuff up there. So you do see more risky stuff now happening on Netflix, and you see risky stuff. The only problem with that is it doesn't make that cultural moment the way a movie used to. I mean, think of 10 things you've seen on Netflix this year. You don't remember them 2 days later. They kind of just vanish, right? And I love Netflix, but I think the permanence, they have to figure out a way to make things more permanent. And so it's interesting. I mean, I'm a little bit of a dinosaur in that most of my projects have gone towards film, towards movie theaters. I do have some projects going to streamers now, which is cool too. But I'm hoping that what the streamers does is make people say yes more, is make people willing to take risks more. And we'll see going forward if that happens. But yeah, the studios, if you're working at a studio, if you're an exec sitting in a big office with, you've got 2 secretaries and a company car, you don't want to lose your job because you took a chance on something, right? These guys are living the life, and they know it's fragile. That one mistake and they're gone. So it's really hard to get them to take risks on things. On the plus side, for someone like me who has a track record, I can sell them things very easily because it's easier to say yes to me. But on the downside, for them to sort of start an NFT company or something like that, they're nervous. They don't know whether it's going to be the thing that gets them fired or not.
Yeah, hey, Mitch, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
What's interesting about what we're talking about with these mainstream studios and things like that is, it and the crossover of what we can do here in crypto and NFTs is, that used to be the only way you could make a movie, right? You'd have to go and sell it to a studio, and now we're sitting here, and in 72 hours you can raise $48 million to go try to buy a copy of the Constitution, right? So, I mean, you're sitting here with opportunities where, who knows, maybe a movie DAO pops up and scoops these tokens and decides, hey, we're going to raise the funds and make this movie ourselves. Like the platform that we have here with NFTs and crypto and the power that it gives to creators and the people is what's really interesting about this. And it's, as Ben said before, it kind of breaks down the walls from this middleman spot that we've always been in. So I think that's a real opportunity here as well for the future.
Yeah, and I think the key for that to succeed is going to be the authenticity. Is going to be, you're going to have to know who it is that's doing the project. It's all got to be very open. It's all got to be self-doxed, you know what I'm saying? Because this can really work. You really could make a movie this way. With Bitcoin billionaires, we've definitely, obviously there's so much in crypto, and the Winklevi twins are involved, and we have Greg Silverman, who used to run Warner's Pictures, is producing the movie, and we have this great situation. This movie's going to shoot this year, I believe, which is awesome. And the question is, how do you want to finance it? Do you want to go to a studio because studios would love to do it, or do you want to go to the community, or do you want to go to the crypto community? And these things were not open 2 years ago. These were not possibilities 2 years ago. And I think NFTs. I certainly think you're going to see NFT funded movies, coming forward. The key is going to be that they are run correctly, that it's authentic people behind them. and that that every step of it is done in an open manner. But yeah, I really think it will happen, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that when it comes to, like you just mentioned, the execs that are hesitant to say yes because they don't want to, put a lot of, it's too much risk for them, especially in the entertainment industry. I mean, it just sounds like they wouldn't make it in the NFT industry, right? Like we have teenagers that are millionaires in our community just from flipping and trading NFTs, and the amount of risk that we go through on a day-to-day basis. I mean, even before we hopped on the spaces with you, Ben, I'm looking at just me, Jake, Poop, and Jacob. We probably spent roughly like almost 20 Ethereum collectively on minting one project. So like this is sort of the world that we live in. It's like, it's really cool because I consider this to be like the phase one of NFTs, like the flipping of JPEGs and, really getting everyone in, forming communities. The phase two is really interesting. Like you bring up a good point. Like, could it be possible? Like, let's just say we're holding your NFT, and maybe we haven't made this like super clear for anyone tuning in right now. Ben Mezrich NFTs pre-sale drop tomorrow. 6,000 total supply, 0.06 mint. With that NFT gets you access to 2 more other NFTs. Will they be claimable, by the way, Bunshu, or will these be airdropped?
The second one will be claimable. So it's actually, the first one is the paid 0.06. The second one's claimable to anybody who owns the first token, 1 per wallet. The third one will be another paid drop of 6,000 at 0.06.
Okay, the third one will be, and then the fourth is like if you.
The fourth will be another. Yeah, the fourth will be another free claim for anyone who owns all 3 tokens, all 3 of the first tokens. So, the fourth one will be, you hold, the meme stock drop, you hold the Bitcoin billionaires, you hold the Vegas drop, you claim your screenplay token. One other thing we didn't mention just about this first drop is attached to the rarest items in the collection. We have attached what we're calling a script score, and the script score, almost like a golden ticket, right? So the rarest of the traits in the collection will have a script score of 3, and that will add as a multiplier of the screenplay tokens you get. So for all the MVHQ snipers out there, that's a little alpha on what you might be looking for.
Wait, so the screenplay token is a token? It's an ERC20?
No, so it'll likely be a NFT as well. So, but it will just be, you will be able to claim 3 rather than 1 for a full set if you have the script score multiplier.
Okay, got it. And I just wanted to make it clear that for the script token, that NFT, the fourth one that you will get if you continue to go down the path and, with the roadmap of Ben Mezrich NFTs, you do, like, everyone will receive prorated to how many you're holding, 50% share of the royalties to your screenplay of what you're sort of writing now with Web3 and the metaverse. Ben, do you guys foresee, maybe you can explain, because I'm not from the entertainment industry. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know how money is like handled. And,
sure.
Like, is that a residual revenue stream? Is that like a one-time sale? And can we expect, perhaps, Ben, you're so entranced by the NFT community that you want to stay longer and write about a multitude of facets of it. You want to continue to write more screenplays with those regards. Will we also see value from those?
That's a great question. And, there's no solid track of how it always works. Things are different each time. So for me, what I normally do is you write a screenplay and you either sell it to a major studio. So you sell it, you get an upfront amount of money, and then you get more money if the movie actually gets made. So just to give an example, for like, the Social Network, I'm trying to remember the exact numbers. For the Antisocial Network, it's like you get my agent would hate me saying these things out loud, but for the Antisocial Network, you get like $1 million up front, and if the movie gets made, you have a little piece of it. It's not enormous. It's not first dollar gross, but it ends up, being a bonus. And I don't know where it could go. It depends on how the movie does. On the other hand, you could go the independent route, and you could sell a movie or self-finance a movie, And then instead of getting an upfront large amount of money, you get a small amount of money up front. It could be as small as $10,000 or $100,000. But then you get points, which means that as the movie comes out, you're getting first dollar gross points. So for instance, you go back to Kevin Spacey, who I worked with. The most money he ever made was on American Beauty, because instead of taking a salary on that movie, he took points, and the movie made a couple $100 million, and he got a couple percentage points of the movie. And that was like opening weekend. So there are different ways you can structure payment when you write a screenplay. For me, it's more about, you write the screenplay and you either go to a studio and try and get it made, or you go the independent route, try to raise financing and make yourself, in which case you own the movie. And then there's a revenue stream that continues. So there's two different ways you can go with that. It's very hard to sit here, having not written the screenplay yet, to tell you what direction it goes. Television works even more differently than that, in which case, you get something per episode, and then if it continues and goes in multiple seasons, then it does very well. Then you do more and more and more. So it's not like there's going to be a clear calculation that you could make using a calculator, figuring out, okay, what are these tokens worth, kind of thing. And I know there are people who will look at it that way. From my perspective, it's more, you're going to have a piece of movie where, that I'm going to write that's hopefully going to be made, that's going to be about NFTs. And that's the way I look at it. So I look at it as the artist, creating something artistic, and hopefully the community shares in that and is happy with that. But the goal is, of course, to sell it to a studio or to make it independently and have it turn into a big movie.
I think the other piece too that Mitch mentioned is like, what is the roadmap beyond this first screenplay? Mm-hmm. And I think, from what we've seen with Ben in the Discord and how, entrenched he is now becoming into the space, like, I think, Ben, you would say that you plan to keep continuing building everything that you do from here out with this project in one way or another. And, so that will evolve for sure over time. This is kind of like phase 1, act 1, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I really, we've been talking about this now, but I really think that if this model works, if people are really intrigued by it, and then Discord grows and it's the kind of thing where people are really into this, I absolutely could see doing a book this way, where you take the stories that I'm writing in the Ben Stories part, and you turn it into a thriller, and the community participates in it. I see that this is an incredible sort of way going forward, if NFTs go where I think they're going, that changes the whole model of how I do my project. And I still do them through major publishers and through major studios, but they're in partnership or backed by the people in the community. And what's great about that, and I think you're seeing this here and there, is that, listen, if the community is big enough, that is also the audience for it. So it's kind of a self-sustaining success model, where a community that's large gets together and helps, buys NFTs that become a book, and then the community is interested in the book. It just keeps going and going and going. And I think that artists of all sorts are going to see this, because, like I'm saying, the value of something is in the community. And that's something that is new. Social media made it happen and brought us here, but that's where we're seeing value made. It's no longer in just the object itself. It's no longer in what used to be considered the fundamentals. It's in the strength of the community behind it. I mean, look at what Bored Apes is doing. That community built value to an enormous degree, just on the backs of the people liking it. And so hopefully we're going to see, artists and writers do the same thing. And I'm hoping that this is a model going forward. So yeah, this is not a one-time thing for me. I'm hoping that this becomes, a big part of my life going forward, and becomes the center of my work going forward.
Wow. Yeah, Ben Bunchu, man, so much great information and insight, and just a wealth of experience, obviously, in your industry, and just really appreciate you guys sharing all this information with us. We are coming up on the 1 hour mark here, so we did want to see if anyone in the audience had any questions or any comments that they wanted to come up on stage and ask Ben or Bunchu, anyone on the team up here, so we can get your questions answered. And while we get people up on stage here, one question I did also have is, do you personally have a favorite NFT purchase you've made to this point, or a project that's kind of inspired you to this point to kind of really latch on to making your own NFT project? I know you mentioned BAYC and some of the value adds that they provide, but go if you want to touch on that. That'd be great.
I'm in the browsing phase right now. I've been meeting a lot of these projects, and Bunchu has been a great guide. I really like. In the last couple of days, I've been looking at a lot of Gajiras. I looked at I like the Ballers. I think they're doing cool stuff. I was looking at the Bunchu's Things collection. Right, there's some cool stuff. I have not purchased other than little things because my son is obsessed with dodo birds. So I've found some things that are not even big projects, just fun things for him. But I am looking more carefully now at what I want to get. For me, it wouldn't be the speculation side. Honestly, it's more about a community that seems to be doing something interesting and unique. That's doing something, fun. So I'm less sort of, doing calculations, which I totally understand, some people do, and more doing like, okay, this looks cool and this looks like it would be fun, and let's get a couple of these. So that's where I'm going in the next couple of weeks. But no, I don't have a collection to show yet, and I'm embarrassed by that, and I want one. So there will be, the next time we speak, I'll be able to show you some cool stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's anything to be embarrassed by at all. I think that's highly relatable, actually, especially with the audience and community that you're also trying to bring into the space, so they can kind of relate to things from that standpoint as well. So, I think that's kind of a beautiful thing to this whole project. It's you kind of get all sides of it, and your insight is so genuine that I think anyone would welcome anything that you provide back to the community.
Well, thank you very much
in any regard. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody's got them. I'm an open book, as they say.
Yes, indeed. Come on up if anyone has any questions. Just hit the top of the hour here. So, if anyone has any questions or anything, we'll get you right up on stage.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for some requests. I'd love to hear more about the kind of tier system I believe that you guys have. I'm not sure if that's tied to the script token exclusively, or if there's other ways to kind of up your tier.
Yeah, so the script score will be the main way, right? So if you go to the Discord, one of the last announcements that I made on there yesterday was about the script score, and it actually tells you which traits will have those script score multipliers, so you'll know kind of right away, what you're looking for. Just to kind of, I did it that way to give everybody kind of a equal playing ground when everybody goes to, snipe reveals and things like that. And so people kind of know what they might have, having some new people in the space. But you can see there's probably about 20 or so traits that have that script score multiplier attached to them. So whenever when we reveal on Wednesday, you will see your NFT will either have a property of a script score of none or 0, or a script score of 3. And each of those properties that are listed in the Discord on that announcement will have a script score of 3. And essentially, again, what that means is if you own a full set, you'll get 1 script score or 1 screenplay token. If you have that multiplier, you'll get 3 screenplay tokens. So that's how that works. And then, like I said, if you want to see the list of what the potential distribution is of those from the rarity standpoint and which exact traits they are, you can head over to the Discord, and in the announcements section, you'll see exactly what you're looking for.
Awesome.
Thank you. Perfect.
Well, it looks like you guys may have just touched on everyone's deepest questions and gotten them answered here in this call here. You guys have really opened up and been so transparent on the the ins and outs of not only the NFT project, but just kind of the entertainment world that you're coming from a little bit, and kind of touching on that as much as possible. So can't thank you guys enough. Jacob, Mitch, anyone else up here, you guys have anything else you wanted to ask or add?
Yeah, I can ask something. Kind of going back to the streaming point you mentioned, and how it's harder to create a culture significant event via a streaming service, but we're kind of moving in that direction. I think COVID has definitely accelerated that, and maybe some good examples are, Tiger King, and then there was the Bird movie. I can't remember what it was, but they were all blindfolded. Like those are the ones
Bird Box.
Bird
yeah,
Box.
Bird
Yeah.
Box. Yeah, where we were all kind of huddled inside watching those. So
Right.
yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts.
That's gotta be where all those blindfold traits come from, our PFP projects, right?
Yeah, and I think you could add Squid Game to that, right? Squid Game definitely was a shocking. Squid Game was one of those shows that I really loved, and it made me nervous that other people loved it too, because it was really disturbing also. But I will say yes. So there have been things that have sort of taken off, and I think that there can be big moments that happen in streamers, but I think we're still at this weird point where we're consuming so much so fast, and that has to do with COVID. That, I mean, we're watching more in a month than we used to watch in a year as a society, which, by the way, is great for creatives because the streamers are burning through so much content that they're just looking to buy stories from everybody. So you can sell stories very easily to streamers, but they need to feed, right? They have to feed on so much content because people are watching so many hours now that it's very hard to have something really stand out. Like, for instance, friends of mine made the Red Notice movie with The Rock. That was probably the most watched movie in history, including all movies. If you count the number of hours watched, it was hundreds of millions of hours watched, that movie. And yet, because it wasn't in the movie theaters, maybe, how many conversations have you heard about it, right? And so for me, it's very intriguing. That was a phenomenal project made by phenomenal people and really exceptional, but it's different, right? And I think that we are reaching a state where, yes, streamers are going to become more and more part of our lives, more and more powerful. We're all just going to watch things that way. But how do we also keep what used to happen when, you had a big movie in the theaters? Right now, you still have like Spider-Man. You'll still have Marvel in the theaters. But if Spider-Man had just come out on a streamer, it would disappear much quicker, is what I'm saying. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that just our eyes are moving so quickly from thing to thing. It's just different now. So I'm waiting for the streamers to figure out, how do you make people watch something and then talk about it, and then have it become a cultural moment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You explained it very well.
Right.
And it's kind of how, we are in the NFT space, where there's a new project, every day. And even
Right.
like a couple hours after one drops, you're kind of on to the next one, unless there's something, crazy or unique or some sort of gamification to it.
Absolutely. I think it's the same thing happening so quickly with NFTs because there's been such a rush into it. It's still in that gold rush phase where everyone's diving in. And I think that's great. But I do think there will be a moment where some of them, rise and become much more sort of mainstreamed. And some of them already are, right? But it's not going to just be a thousand of them a day. It's going to be important ones. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
100%. It looks like we got some requests coming up. Ganny is trying to connect. Are you up here, Ganny?
Welcome.
Yeah.
Nice humanoid.
Yeah.
Well, Ganny.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Oh, cool.
Happy Sunday, brother.
Yeah, happy Sunday. Ben, first, just thanks so much for your time and answering all these questions. And to all the co-hosts for putting this on. But I'm curious, you touched on this a little bit earlier, about book publishing. And I'm wondering, do you think, like with your experience, that NFTs in this space could potentially become just a straight up crowdsourced publishing platform, where you wouldn't even need to involve another publisher? You could just crowdsource it and publish it on your own, type of scenario.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, we saw people the self-publishing world is enormous, and people make books all the time on Amazon. You can just put them right up there. So if you add in sort of an NFT community to that, you really wouldn't need a major publisher, right? You could just have the NFT community be behind it. The author could write it. It could come out as a direct sort of printing onto your Kindle or whatever. For me personally, I love having the big publisher behind it, so that it gets into the Barnes and Nobles and the Borders and all of the Borders don't exist anymore. Barnes and Nobles and all the little bookstores and all the airport stores and stuff like that. And again, I fully admit that I'm somewhat of a dinosaur in that, all of my success has happened via these mainstream routes. And when self-publishing jumped up, I thought, okay, there's some cool books that have come out of that, but it's a sea of stuff, right? It's 1,000 million things coming out every day. How do you know what's good and what's not? And I think what publishers still keep there is the vetting process of sort of basically, an editor and an editorial staff and people like that, so you know what you're getting. Again, it goes back to this authenticity or the vetting or the doxing of it. A publisher puts behind it the idea that, well, if it comes out from Random House, at least it's got a lot of that behind it. But yeah, I totally do see, in terms of what creators are going to be able to do, if an author has a community behind it that's 10,000 strong, it's as good as having a publishing house. So yes, I do think you're going to see that. You won't necessarily need publishers to do it. The question is, how do you keep the quality high? How do you make sure that it's something that people are going to read and love? You could just write for your little group or for your community, and then it wouldn't matter so much. But if you want it to also then spread across the world, right, and become an international bestseller, then there has to be some level of professionalism behind it. I don't know. I mean, I will say that there's a lot of great writers out there who are self-publishing, and I think for them it could be an enormous benefit if they figured out the NFT world. I don't know how much of a crossover there is between people who self-publish and understand NFTs, but I think if they could figure it out, yeah, you could do some great things here.
Gotcha. So maybe like on a larger scale, it's not about cutting the publisher out, but about finding publishers who are down to collaborate with like these NFT group or these communities.
For me, that is absolutely correct. I would not, but again, I'm speaking from my background and my history of books. I'm at a place where I already fought so hard to get over those walls, right? I had the 190 rejection slips taped to my wall like a serial killer, and I spent years eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches trying to get an editor to answer my phone. So I've already busted down the walls to the point where I understand that industry. But I totally could see a young person coming up today who says, you know what the hell? Why do I got to climb those walls when I've already built 1,000 people who like my work? I don't need the publishers. And for them, I say, absolutely go for it. I mean, I'm a big believer in the crowd and the people and breaking down the walls. So I already climbed those walls, and I feel like I want relationships with the publishers. I want to use them. And so I like being a part of that system, but I also am really, really excited by people breaking down the system. So yes, I do think for people coming up today, this is going to be a viable way to go. I'm from a different era. so for me, I'm going to stick with what I know, but I do think I want to see a young person make a huge success this way. So hopefully people will do it.
Do you have anything you're working on, Ganny, or anything you're eyeing?
Not at this time. I've been an artist and a musician for many years, and I see this new platform as a way to grow an audience and way to release things. So I'll probably do something at some point, but yeah, just right now, just kind of learning about it and learning about what's going on.
I mean, I think that's awesome. Listen, I really think that this is a brave new world for people coming up in the arts right now, where the old world sort of is starting to not have the control that it used to have, and things like this could really be a very interesting way to go. So I would look into it, and you'd probably be one of the first. so to succeed here, there's going to be some success stories out of here, and that's going to be really, really cool to watch.
Cool, thanks, man.
Thank you, Ganny. Great question, man.
Yeah, it looks like we're still waiting on any requests. Happy to answer more questions if Ben time allows, and appreciate you being so open and
yeah, I'm happy. I've got a few minutes left if anybody wants to ask anything. I'm also I'm very active on our Discord. I have to tell you that I'm just loving it there, and I'm there all the time. I'm in and out all the time. And so I'm not kidding. And people who've been there can tell you I'm there. I'm there all the time. I might have it on, in the middle of the night, in the morning, and all day. So I'm really open to questions. I think people, especially, people interested in writing or people interested in crypto and NFTs is I'm learning stuff too. So I'm happy to talk about it. And I'm an open book in terms of my stories. So do come by and ask me anything at any time. And if I see it, I'll happily answer it. But yeah, if there's any last couple questions, I've got a few minutes left.
That's awesome. And if you're wondering how to get into Ben's Discord, we do have his pinned tweet up there, which has the link in the thread. So that would be your best bet. And you can check out the Twitter as well.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably, on the night of the public mint, we'll be watching The Social Network together. Bunchu, is that what we're going to do?
Yeah. It was funny. We did last week, we streamed 21. And Ben was in there chatting the whole time. He gave us like a scene by scene breakdown of being on set and all that stuff. And so I think we're going to do The Social Network on Mint Night. So come stop by and do that. I was going to say too, if you're just heading over to the Discord now, check out the Ben Storytime channel. And he's basically making the Discord a memoir, which is really cool. And you'll see some stories about his run-ins with Russian oligarchs and all kinds of crazy shit. So
absolutely, it's a blast for me, and that's essentially how I'm writing a book. So you were right, this might become the book that becomes the NFT book. We'll see. I'm throwing stories in there, almost stream of consciousness, and some of them I'm probably not supposed to be telling, so it'll get fun, I think. And we're gonna have a blast. So I really appreciate this, and this conversation is awesome, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah,
really
thank you,
can't
Ben.
thank you enough.
Yeah, and thank you, Bunchu, as well. We love seeing members bring value back to our community, and Ben, we invite you to come and if you've got a handful of ETH, you're ready to lock and load and mint and feel that rush. Come join Metaverse HQ. You'll see what a real community is all about. Because
we'll get Ben hanging out in the voice chat, being a true DJ at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Exactly. We are a different kind of community, Ben. We've been through the trenches together, and I think it'll be very apparent and really interesting, at least from your perspective.
Well, I love it.
Bex. Hello, Bex.
Hi. How's everyone doing?
Bex.
We're staying out of trouble.
Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed this. It's been great hearing you speak, Ben, and thanks to all the hosts. You're doing an amazing job. I guess I've been wondering, every day so much happens in this space, and there's like a million stories you could tell. So I was wondering how you're going to go about streamlining that and framing it all together into, a cohesive story.
I mean, it's a great question. And what I have found is, as the author, you do have a lot of sort of control in terms of steering the narrative, which means that you can pick one small story or one intriguing drama that maybe isn't already super well known, and then put the whole rest of the story around it. And so I think what's intriguing, for instance, what I did with the GameStop story is we all know the A story, which involved Roaring Kitty and Melvin Capital and Wall Street Bets. But the way I told the story was you find a few regular people, one who made a fortune in GameStop, one who maybe didn't, and you tell the story through their eyes, but tell the wider story around it. And I think it would be cool to do the NF story in that way, to some respect. You maybe just have one grinder in a main character kind of place, and then tell the larger story around that person's dive in there. And the drama is going to be what happens to them. But you learn everything there is to know about NFTs around it. And I think I've done that in a lot of my books, in that you can tell a much wider story hinged around a small story. With the Facebook story, it just so happened that Zuckerberg and his best friend had this Shakespearean drama that pulled them apart. But we were telling a much bigger story through that drama. And so, with the NFT community, you could pick almost any of the big stories and take it apart that way, or you could take a much smaller story about one person who pulled something off, or who lost something, or whatever, and through them tell the larger story. So I don't have the answer yet. I don't know, but you're right. There's a million stories. You don't have to tell them all. You're going to tell one story, and then the million stories are going to revolve around it, like the lights on a Christmas tree. And that's how it's going to work. You're going to have the root up in the middle, and then all the lights are going to be around it. I'm not trying to be philosophical again, it's just the way my mind works. But I do think that I can see it already as all of these kind of, you're going to talk about this one tweet that sold for millions of dollars. You're going to talk about, the $65 million piece of art. And you're going to talk about the apes, and you're going to talk about this and that. But the drama of it is not going to be that. It's going to be this individual story.
That makes a lot of sense. It's really cool. Thank you for explaining that. I love the Christmas tree analogy too. We're just in the season still, barely.
Yeah, I got to pull that in. I know. I got to get the Christmas tree in there. But thank you. I really appreciate the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bex, thanks for coming on and sharing that question.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you, Bex.
If we got any other questions, now's the time. Forever hold your peace. If not, Ben is chilling in the Discord. He's not only lurking, he is a full-blown participant of his NFT project. We love to see it. And Ben, thank you so much for your time. Bunchu, thank you also for helping set this up and bringing value back to our community. I personally am excited to see how this unfolds, and I will absolutely be minting if I can.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I will be coming over to the Metaverse HQ and hanging out and learning about this as well. I follow Bunchu wherever he goes, so you'll see me there behind him. And come by the Discord and say hi, and I really appreciate it, guys. It's going to be a fun week.
All right. Cheers, Ben. Looking forward to it, brother.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Have
Ben.
a great. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Great job. Good stuff, Mitch.
That guy's crazy. I loved it.
It was nice hearing his kind of genuine passion and enthusiasm for the project. It didn't feel like your standard run of the mill, celebrity, project that wants to do something like this. It seems like he's really involved and genuinely cares about it.
Yeah. I mean, also it's a better mint price than Stoner Cats at 0.32 and Glue Factory at 0.15, not to mention a return on investment if you do get that screenplay token. So I'm glad he's thinking about how he's going to provide value long term. And, he's also creating a screenplay about this, which could end up being a fucking big movie. Hopefully directed by one of my favorites, Adam Mckay. I mean, this whole thing just feels so right.
Yeah, it really does. And sometimes you forget just how deeply connected some of these people are, and who they know and who they've been involved with too, from a creative standpoint. So that's all very exciting stuff.
You guys did a really great job, by the way. It was great, Mitch, and really cool connection you found too with bringing Ben on here.
Definitely.
Thank you, Bex. What we try to do.
You're doing a great job with it, Mitch. And Jacob.
It's a team effort for sure.
We got any fellas? We got any spaces coming up you want to talk about, Mitch? Anything exciting for people to look forward to?
Yeah, so we had just had Ben. They were nice enough to give our members 75 white lists. For those of you that have tuned in all the way, thank you so much for sharing your Sundays with us. We totally appreciate it. We know that, in the metaverse, metaverse can feel like a 24-hour day job, especially if you're in it full time, much like a lot of us are in our community at Metaverse HQ. I think our position in where we want to move in terms of 2022 is just providing value back to the NFT space and to the NFT community. A lot can get lost in translation when we have 1,300 members participating full time in our Discord, and we can sort of lose track of what's happening on the outside. And, we just want to keep bringing value to the NFT community. A lot of newcomers coming into the space and be a sort of outlet to provide intel and alpha with those regards. So we'll keep it up. We've got Brain Drops on a Twitter Spaces in 2 days. If you don't know, Brain Drops is basically art blocks but cooler. Don't don't light me up if you're an art blocks maxi, but we really like what Brain Drops is doing. I don't know. you guys have minted. I actually haven't been able to get a mint yet, so they have some really exciting news to share about their upcoming drop, and that will be in 2 days. So stay tuned for that, and much more. So definitely tune into Metaverse HQ Twitter, and follow our Discord announcements. We will be sharing a lot more with all of y'all. And again, thank you for tuning in. Anything else to add, Phyllis and or Bex?
No, beautifully said. Well said, man. Thanks for all you do. You and Jacob have been killing it with these spaces and getting the message out. So, yeah, only thing I'll add is just all of our links are in our Twitter bio. If you're interested in the community, checking us out, being a part of it, all of our links are in the bio. So feel free to check us out. DM us either on here or on Discord with any questions you may have. We'll be happy to help.